it's Jordan. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio,
Tumwa, Iowa.
Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up. Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. As the Democratic Party and its media accomplices continue to reel in the aftermath of Donald Trump's presidential election victory, I am here to show you one of the most cringe moments of elite mainstream media hypocrisy that I have never seen, and I've been working in the media for nearly 20 years. This takes the cake. And of course, it's on MSDNC. Now, there will be plenty of time to focus on the threats of Donald Trump. However, we must call out these frauds when the evidence is very clear. I am going to show you one Joy Reid reacting to Kamala Harris's concession speech and her defeat.
Young people who supported her the most strongly. It was 18 to 29-year-olds who gave her 55 to 46 a victory. If it was just the young, if it was just the people who will inherit this country, she would have won. If it was just millennials, 51-46, the people who right now are struggling to, buy a home and afford their lives and really have the biggest economic struggles. Because let's be clear, it's not the people who deliver Trump, which is Generation X, my generation. They got a little coin in the bank. They just want a tax cut. They are not the people who are struggling. It is the people Claire described are those millennials who can't, like my kids. I have a Z and I have millennials. They can't afford their lives. We still have to help them. They're trying and they're striving. That's the people who are struggling. They took a chance on that lady. They had the faith in the future to say that this Black and Asian woman could lead this country. So that's where we need to bet on the young. My generation, Generation X, the people who grew up on WWE and Hulk Hogan and Donald Trump did this. They did this. They are the ones who looked in the face of somebody who said, I want to be a dictator on day one.
We need to bet on the young. If only the election results were among young voters, Kamala Harris would be the first woman president. Can you think of another politician, maybe a little bit older than Kamala Harris? Different color? Talks like this. Enough is enough. That Joy Reid didn't entrust the young people? Didn't sympathize with the young people that are still living with their parents? Didn't sympathize with the young voters? Young people shackled as debt slaves due to college student loans? Could you think of another politician, I don't know, maybe even in the last 4 years or 8 years, that young people were galvanized and energized to go out there and vote? The name is escaping me. Because, of course, Joy Reid responded the same way. Of course, Joy Reid responded the same way to Bernie Sanders losing in the 2016 primary and Bernie Sanders losing in the 2020 primary, where even more young people came out and voted for him than Kamala Harris when she ran in 2020. Do you remember Joy Reid? Because obviously it was the same. Obviously she was consistent, right? Said the same thing. She sympathized with the young back then. Oh, wait. She didn't sympathize with the young. Oh, wait. She had a very, 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 very different tune back then. Let's roll the tape.
You may have heard the term Bernie bro this election season, typically young, white, and male. Bernie bros have been accused of online trolling, misogyny, and outright bigotry. Senator Sanders himself addressed the phenomenon last month.
Call them Bernie bros.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, sure. Anybody who supports me who is engaged in sexist attacks is unacceptable. I don't want that support.
And joining me now is Janelle Ross, a political reporter at the Washington Post and the author of a recent piece on some of Bernie Sanders' more vitriolic supporters. And Janelle, I read your piece, and it all was so very familiar as somebody who covers this race and who tweets a lot and so is on social media. You said in your piece that Bernie Sanders' most vitriolic supporters really test the meaning of the word progressive. What did you mean by that?
Interesting. Because she's so sympathetic now for the young. She's so sympathetic now for the millennials and Gen Z, who same conditions. They were living under the same conditions when Bernie was running as Kamala's running. Actually, if you really look at it, 2 Bernie campaigns, it got worse over those 4 years for young people. But she didn't have that same sympathy. Instead, she latched on to, this is a misogynist, this is a bigot, he's out of touch, his supporters are all sexist bigots. But it got worse. That was 2016. Then in 2020, she brought on a body language expert to smear Bernie Sanders for his quote unquote sexism in mansplaining or allegedly mansplaining to Elizabeth Warren on why a woman could not become president. Do you remember this?
Dust up between the two of them is that scandals hurt you more when they seem plausible, right? I mean, Bernie Sanders does have a sort of physicality, you know, when he talks that is a shaking your finger at Hillary Clinton, shaking your finger, shovey, weirdy, you know, his physicality makes me think, he could have said, you know, listen, I think in this environment a woman can't win. That doesn't seem like a crazy
Well, first of
thing
all,
for him to say.
I think Bernie's lying. We see him, he slouches forward anyway, Joy, but here he turtles. If you look at his eye level where he normally answers questions, when he makes the denial, his whole shoulders come up like a little kid getting caught. His eye level is below his shoulders.
He turtles. So he's clearly lying. Remember that? How CNN broke when Bernie had a surge in the Democratic primary in 2020? CNN broke that Bernie had told Elizabeth Warren a woman couldn't be the president. And their sources were Elizabeth Warren. But there was only 2 people in the room, Bernie and Elizabeth Warren. Can't make this stuff up. I'm not doing this video as a, to trigger your 2016 and 2020 Bernie PTSD. And I'm not doing this video to, enshrine Bernie. I got a lot of issues with Bernie these days. Although I did like his scorched statement that he just made after Kamala lost, ripping the Democratic Party. Wish he would have been doing that much earlier. I'm saying this because it just shows you these people are completely full of shit. These millionaire anchors on CNN, MSNBC, who frankly, not all older people, but by the data, the boomers are still their predominant audience, are being hoodwinked into believing the things these people say about politics, about the economy, about what's actually happening on the ground, the pulse of America, when I don't even know if they actually truly believe what they say. How does Joy Reid going from attacking the champion of the young voters, and there was a lot of older voters who loved Bernie too, including in my audience, but by the data, Bernie's base was young voters. How do they go from attacking, demonizing, smearing this man as a sexist, a bigot, a Bernie bro, all these things, when he was the voice of the young voter? He brought out millions of young people into the electoral process. Honestly, based on the electoral data, millions of young people didn't turn out compared to Bernie 2016. I did a tweet thread about this earlier. I'm going to get into it a little bit later on my live stream, but there's a massive drop among millennials and Gen Z from 2016 to 2020. A massive drop in turnout. In 2016, the turnout among age 18 to 44, that is Gen Z and millennials, was 44% of voters in the general election. That was the Bernie year, Bernie wave. A couple days ago, 37% of voters were turned out age 18 to 44. That's a 7-point drop. You don't think that has anything to do with the candidate that the Democratic Party took out by the knees and smeared, and Joy Reid and MSNBC and CNN and the New York Times and the Washington Post made a bigot, a sexist, a this, a that. He's a socialist. He's a boogeyman. You don't think that the very youth vote, Gen Z and millennial, who are inspired by this man, who had hope for the first time, living in their parents' basement with no economic futures, you don't think maybe they stopped turning out? Look at that drop. 44% of the vote in 2016. Age 18 to 44, 37% this time. You don't think that happens to be a reason Kamala Harris lost? It's not the only reason, a reason. It's truly disgusting and unbelievable. Now, does Joy Reid genuinely today, 8 years after she started smearing, and it's not just about Bernie Sanders, it's about smearing the working class. She smeared the only candidate that was representing the working class there. She could have just said, listen, you know, I respect that he's for young people. I respect that he's talking about these issues, but these issues over here are more important to me. You know, race, culture, all that stuff. Okay, I would disagree with you, but that's fine. But maybe she sincerely feels bad for the youth now because we're facing a second Trump presidency, but she certainly didn't feel bad for them when she was smearing their champion. Neither did the rest of MSNBC. So spare me your crocodile tears, Joy Reid, for the youth of America. And spare me, if only the election, if only the results among young people, Kamala Harris would have been in the election, would have been in the White House, because we could do that dance too. If only MSNBC, CNN didn't lie to America for 8 years about the one working class progressive in the Senate who tyranny wanted to pass universal health care. Maybe we'd be closer to it.